the idea of just do it. Just got to do it. Even if you're not ready, like my Spanish is atrocious, but 3 times a week I've been taking Spanish lessons and it's all working out. And it always seems to. And if it doesn't, it's easy to change directions.
This is Intentionally Ever After. Join intentional lifestyle coach Joe Bukartek for a series of personal conversations and coaching sessions with various people about how living with intention shows up for them.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Intentionally Ever After. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with the magnificent Brighton West. Brighton, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe.
Yeah. Brighton, will you kindly introduce yourself to your future adoring fans?
Thank you so much. So I run a business called Brighton West Video. And what we do is help coaches, mostly some therapists, hypnotists, related professions, connect with people using video. Specifically, I call myself a virtual videographer for coaches, and I do video using the internet. So I'm sure we'll be talking more about the impact of that on my life.
Oh, I hope so. I certainly hope so. And full disclosure to the folks out in the internet land, I found Brighton and have utilized his services and am beyond thrilled with them and plan to continue using them. And I may boldly refer to him as my friend as we go along, but that's only if he'll have me.
Sounds good. I like it.
So, Brighton, what does it mean to you currently to live intentionally?
It's interesting. I kind of think when I saw the question, I was like, what does it mean to live internationally? Because that's what I'm doing. Because intentionally for me is internationally. And well, let's just jump right into why I became a virtual videographer. So when I formed my business, I had worked in corporate, I'd worked in nonprofit, I've worked in government, and I got the entrepreneurial bug 5-6 years ago. And so I wanted to be very intentional about forming this business. And I decided I wanted 2 things. And one was that I wanted to be able to work from anywhere in the world. So I wanted a business that could take me anywhere. And the second thing is that I wanted to work with people that I enjoyed being around. And so I ended up working with coaches because, as you know, those of you who know Joe, great people. And I took my video skills and turned that into an online video business. So living intentionally, my business is really the biggest example of that. It's allowed me to live internationally. I'm currently living in La Paz, Mexico for the winter. My wife and I bought a house down here last year. And so just being able to kind of set forth what you want to do and then create the life that makes that happen.
Excellent. I like the way you tied that in at the end. So it includes professional as well as personal, you're saying?
Yes. I mean, so many of us end up working. I mean, the majority of our waking hours are typically working. So you have to design your professional to fit what you want out of life. And not just wait till you retire and then start living.
Was there a time when you didn't live so intentionally?
Yeah, there was a lot of time when I didn't live intentionally, I think. I'm trying to think. I think maybe I did live intentionally for whatever my intention was at that time. So I think that's the difference, is that maybe, fresh out of college, moving to Atlanta, big city, parties and whatnot. Yeah, that probably was my intention at the time, but I just have new intentions now that are maybe a little more grown up.
Gotcha. That fit your current version of yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So it sounds like intentionality can shift, and maybe it makes sense that it would.
Yes, I think definitely. Back when I was moving to Atlanta, I was a single guy, and that was a different life than being married and just being able to having different priorities, I guess.
What reminds you to live intentionally?
What reminds me? That is an interesting question. I think it's just a constant thing for me. And I don't know if it's necessarily something I think of as the intentionality, but just I guess because I'm so into this, having built my business around this intention. I don't know if there's necessarily anything that reminds me, but it reminds me that I am living my life intentionally when we have coffee every morning on our patio that's overlooking the Bay of La Paz. Definitely, yeah, it's more of a reminder that I am, more so than a reminder to do it.
That's great. So you've built it in, frankly, you've structured it in so that you can't help but wake up in La Paz, at least currently.
That is true. Yes, right? Exactly.
Yeah. That sounds like a pretty great system, right? It's almost impossible to fail.
Yeah, I think so. It really, it's taken a while for the business to get to the point where it's kind of self-supporting and, kind of cruising along without the need to look back and be like, oh, maybe this was not a good idea. Maybe this is not going to work out. But the business is at the point where it's working out and it can only get better. So there's no looking back at this point.
That's great. Well, it doesn't seem like you would want to, frankly.
No, I've got the ideal clients, and there's probably some tweaks coming in the future that I'm sure we'll get into. Little foreshadowing there, tweaks in the future.
Excellent. All right, we'll note that. What is one change in habit that has had an exponential payoff?
At first I didn't think this was an intentional thing, but I think it is, and that is just having the ability to say no. I am very much a person who wants to please everyone, and learning to say no is pretty powerful. And also, just last week I had some client who wanted some extra stuff, and I was like, well, no, this is what I offer. They said, oh, well, can't you just throw that in? And I was like, no, I can't. You can pay extra for that if you would like to, if that's what you want. And sure enough, the check came in the door. And I was like, wow, I'm getting paid what I deserve for the work I'm doing. And I think that's a big change, is just learning to say no, to ask for what you want and just follow through and not feel bad about it. Because if someone values the thing that you provide that's equal to the price, then they'll buy it. If they want it for free, maybe they want it really bad, maybe they don't. But yeah, saying no, great thing.
And it sounds like in that example you gave that you saying no didn't shut down interaction or conversation. In fact, it really just enhanced it some and got you more specific to what you were willing or not willing to do.
Yes.
And for what exchange.
Exactly. Essentially with this specific example, I sent him 2 invoices and I said, you can get the base or you can get the upgrade, choose. And he chose the upgrade. That's the one that got paid. So yeah, it was simple.
That's simple. Mm-hmm. That does sound simple, doesn't it?
Simplicity, yes.
Did it feel simple in the moment, or was that more a factor of reflection after the fact?
Yeah, in the moment it was a lot more like, oh, should I really be, should I just, it's easy enough to just throw that in, So there was a little more thought and a little more angst, but in the end it's a good, it's just one more example of when it works out to say no.
And seemingly, given that it's a recent example, the next time you have to consider back and forth, it might not be as difficult a choice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it simplified. Each time it gets easier.
Yeah. So in the theme of saying no to things, is there something that you have said no to that has made a significant impact in your life?
That's an interesting one. Yeah, I am not sure if there's something that's kind of changed the direction of life versus like just opening up additional revenue, opening up, the simplicity with clients. Essentially the first time I stepped away from a client was pretty empowering. So I think a lot of that just has to do with opening up things that wouldn't be possible if I had kind of accepted something less than ideal.
Well, that's interesting. You said it opened up things, but it sounds like you were actually limiting what you were willing to do.
Yes, because there's only so much time in the day. And when you close one door, another door opens. There's space for another door to open and more ability to go the direction you want to go when you're not going the opposite direction.
So do you, that example that you alluded to of walking away from a client, how front of mind is that when you're working with potential clients?
Yeah, I'm not so much, I think it's easier to not get into one of those versus walk away from a client, to just kind of realize up front that this is not the right client for me, and just kind of steer clear. And also, I mean, part of it is when your business is more successful, that's a lot easier to do. Back when that happened, that was early on, and it was like, oh, do I really want to get rid of this client? They're paying the bills. But it was the right answer then. And I think now it just kind of like maybe don't send out a proposal or something, just or offer to work with someone if they want something special.
There is certainly something to that. The more successful you become, the more discerning you feel like you can be with who you work for.
Yes.
Yeah. And the more confidence now you can speak about it in hindsight.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I feel like you might have been alluding to this along the way, but what area in your life feels just about perfect?
Yeah, I think that, I feel like we're talking solely about my business, but my business does, it is a big part because I am a solopreneur, but it does feel about perfect in terms of the amount of clients that I have and the clients that I work with, the ability to go live in La Paz and do kind of what I want. One thing, and this is kind of that growth area of my business, is passive income. And that's something that I feel like is very exciting now for me, is to see that it was something, the way my business works, I have a YouTube channel, and I share a lot of like, this is how you do things. This is how you use a teleprompter if you're a coach. And some of those videos have ads, so there's ad revenue coming from that. And some of them have affiliate links to Amazon to buy that teleprompter, for instance. And when I started, my goal was, I'm like, if I could get like a quarter of my income to be solely from those passive sources that I wake up in the morning and there's more money in my bank account. And it's taken a while to get there, and it's still not at a quarter, but it is really exciting to just have that money show up. Whether I show up for work, whether I stay and have a second cup of coffee while I'm looking at the bay, that doesn't matter in terms of that income. And so I'm looking to expand more in that, to really focus more on providing additional value that pays me back long term. And I also look at that as, it's kind of a retirement. So that is, those revenue sources just continue and they grow. If I put out another video, it just grows it a little bit, but it's something that just continues to happen, and the numbers are always getting bigger.
Well, that's the direction it sounds like you want it to be heading in, correct?
Yeah, I love working with clients. I love working with coaches. I love working with their clients, but there's definitely something to be said for just kind of working completely on my own schedule and, producing things that there's not you're not really exchanging time for money. That it's a very simple, I produce something. If people love it, YouTube pays me a little more money. That's pretty cool.
Does this have anything to do with the foreshadowing you were doing a little bit ago?
Yeah, that was kind of the foreshadowing there. So, and actually when you kind of asked some questions in advance, I was trying to think of, someone that I admire. So I'm going to jump ahead in your questions here, but I was like, who do I admire? Who do I admire? And I thought of my friend Brian, and he has a YouTube channel. And this is so not me, not what I'm looking to do, but he has a YouTube channel where he plays slot machines and he records it, and he's making a lot of money playing slot machines, not necessarily from the slot machines themselves, but from the business of playing slot machines on YouTube. So he releases a new video every day, and he really is doing something that he loves to do for an audience that loves watching him do it. And the revenue model is YouTube ads, which I don't know exactly what he's making, but just going through his numbers and reverse engineering it, it's well into the six figures from YouTube ads. And then there are many other ways to make money when you're a personality like that. So it's pretty cool that he's taken what he loves to do, filmmaking and playing slot machines, and put them together in such a way that he's able to make that his business. So, and he will go and film these. He'll spend 18 hours in a casino and film episode after episode after episode. So he's got all this content. So he really, whenever he goes to do his casino slot machine thing that he loves, he films it, and that becomes the content that other people watch. And it's very simple, but he's got a huge following, and he wants to go to a new city, fly to a new city to go to a new casino, and the casino's treating him like a VIP because he will have a fan club come out to watch him play the slot machines.
Wow.
And so it's just, I guess, seeing him, there's a little bit of the connection to he is doing exactly what he loves. And who would have thought it'd be possible to make videos of yourself playing a slot machine and have that kind of revenue coming in? And he sells t-shirts with his brand on it, all these different things. And yeah, he's doing what he loves and getting paid to do it. And I think that's, what is the saying, that you doesn't feel like you're working at all if you're doing what you love. Got that down.
Right. That is fascinating. I mean, I am wildly intrigued at this idea here. I mean, it's great that he's successful, and even if he wasn't,
yeah,
it's that much more impressive that he is so successful at it. But man, that is very interesting. But of course, my curiosity is now to you, and what does that mean for you? How does that translate to you?
Yeah, well, it continued to build those passive revenue streams of making YouTube videos. But I have two channels that I spend most of my time on. I have a channel that I talk to coaches and others about using YouTube. And I have a channel that's kind of about everything else. So I just recently made some videos, 2 videos, long videos, 45-minute videos about how to move to Mexico. And they are doing really, really well. And there's a heck of a lot of people out there doing similar things like that, like renting an RV, which I think you're about to go do, and just the whole RV lifestyle thing. Just people making videos about how they're living their life the way other people wish they were living. So it's huge. And I think it goes back to Brian's channel of people really love playing slot machines. And if you can't play them yourself, might as well watch somebody else do it. So it's kind of like, wow, this guy's out every day playing slot machines. I wish I was him. And that's the same thing with the RV channels. It's this lifestyle that people desire. And when you're doing it and you have some camera skills to just be able to talk about what you're doing, you can support yourself just by sharing your adventure with other people. So there's going to be some more of that, I think, some more Mexico. My next video is probably how to drive in Mexico. It's very helpful to people, but it also helps them it helps them on their journey to coming down here, but it also just helps them dream a little bit. To be like, oh, when I move to Mexico, I got to remember that the green flashing light means this.
Yeah. Well, I won't ask you to tell me what it means. I will wait for the video to come out to learn it. But how interesting, right? Because you will get people at all phases of that journey. Some people who will never go and do the thing. Mm-hmm. Some people who maybe aren't even interested in the thing, but they are into the fact that, wow, here's a guy who's doing what he wants to be doing and living his life the way he wants to live it. All the way to the people who are like, well, my trip is next month, or I wonder if this is similar to the trip that I took. You're going to get all the people. And, you don't have to be modest. Some camera skills you do possess, yes, but that'll elevate you even beyond the jokers with an iPhone or what have you, right? So yeah, this sounds fantastic. And it very much sounds like the integration of your business and your personal life. Right. Yes. Yeah. And it's great. I think my most popular video on YouTube that's making me the most money, actually, no, I had a different one that made more money recently, but was about how to unlock a door, like when the inside of the handle is broken. It was over at my sister-in-law's house. And, it was a 1 minute long video, but I was like, well, I might as well make a video. I'm fixing this door. And it's amazing. But so I've got lots of stuff where it's just like, oh, I'm doing this, how to fix your couch. I'd be making a lot more money if I was specialized. I do have kind of this whatever comes to mind thing, and YouTube channels do a lot better if they are specialized. So if I had a channel about moving to Mexico, that'd be more successful than the one that talks about
how to replace a spring in a couch. That's a popular one. Or how to put Zoom on your TV. That's a good one too.
Yeah.
Little stuff like that. It's like, whatever. This is something that I'm learning to do. Let me share it.
Yeah, and I guess I would venture to say that if you did specialize that much more, then maybe more focus would be on all of that instead of living your life the way you want to live it.
I don't know, because if I just like with Brian as an example, I mean, that's the thing he's most passionate about is slot machines. So if you focus on the thing that is your passion, and then it comes through in the videos too. I think it just, a video about unlocking a door can only be so much passion, but another video about, something you need to know about living in Mexico. I think that's probably where I might be spending more time, is really focusing on that international living aspect.
Yeah. Well, there's that old adage, one man's passion is another man's passive income stream. Right?
I love it.
There we go. I think that was Brighton West that came up with that one.
I think actually you're the one that coined that term, but I'm glad I inspired it.
Well, maybe you could make a video about it and give me a little credit.
There we go. I think that is, that's a great video.
I'm curious, back to the point again you had made, you had started to feel like maybe you were talking exclusively about your business, but that you were a solopreneur. How much of that has to do with intentionality?
Being a solopreneur, that's something, I'd been a manager, I'd been high level, upper management, middle management, individual, project manager, people manager, all those different things. And managing people, especially middle management, was definitely a little bit of a challenge versus the idea of being a solopreneur. It's just, it's not that I don't like being around people. It's nice to not have to rely on someone else. And I've got contractors that do the work, but it's difference between contractors and employees. It's kind of like, hey, this is what I need you to do, deliver. And if you don't deliver, I'll just go find a different contractor. There's, an employee relationship's a little different. So it definitely makes life easier. So a little bit of the flip side of that is I did kind of at the beginning of my online video journey, where I was just turning this into a business, was actually I made a web series. It was very popular in the Portland area, and people started asking me like, "Hey, how do you do this on YouTube? How do you make people watch your YouTube videos?" And I had no idea that so many of my friends making YouTube videos weren't getting anyone to watch them. So that's when it went ding, ding, ding. I have a business here. But it was a web series, and we had at any point in time probably 10 people on set, actors and crew. And I was the director, and it was a lot of fun putting all those people together, but it was also a lot of work. And I was like, if I could just do things individually, one person using a camera instead of needing to have a crew that comes together. I like simplicity. So I usually, and that's a theme in most of my videos too, when it comes to like, hey, here's your setup coach to record a video. It's your iPhone. It's not a, Nikon, whatever, DSLR or something like that. I'm not about making things, gorgeous and perfect and whatnot and complex, but keeping life simple is definitely big for me.
Yeah. So we talked about you not having the need really for a reminder that you need to live life intentionally. It just kind of is happening by function of how you've structured it.
Yes.
But you're also not living full time in Mexico. What reminder or what function do you have in place when you're back stateside?
Yeah, that is interesting. And that's a little harder, I think, stateside, because I do find myself working more to, I just get a little tied up in work versus here. There's a lot more other things to do. That's a little more, it's spread out a little more in terms of my life. It's a lot more just being able to work on the house and the yard and traveling to this past weekend, we went to a beach town about 45 minutes away. So there's definitely, it's a little harder in Portland to have that intentionality of like, what's the living the benefits of the intentional life. I did set up a bunch of cameras down here so I can watch Mexico from the United States, but maybe those will be my reminders, just because I am going to miss Mexico. Going back to Portland. Portland is gorgeous in the summer. We have a wonderful house that's, walking distance from shops and restaurants. It's great, but definitely going to miss this place, which is kind of the celebration of what our intention is.
Yeah, maybe for your morning coffee, you can turn on the cameras and check out how things are going, still experience it. Yeah.
Yep. Watch the beach.
That sounds like a pretty great system. Yep. You get to have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly. It gets hot here. By April, it'll be in the mid 90s. So we're going to need to be going home. We're in a house without air conditioning down here. So
right.
Yeah, it'll be about time to go back to Portland.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of wonderful things to bring you back there as well.
Yeah, and especially going back as COVID is starting to kind of hopefully finish up a little bit so that I can enjoy those things. I mean, we're in a wonderful neighborhood of Portland, but that year of COVID was, why be near bars and restaurants and shops if they're all closed? That wasn't a lot of fun this last summer. So I'm looking forward to how that'll be coming back around and being able to enjoy all those things again. And I think that's, maybe that's going to help with people's intentionality in this coming year is, we kind of skipped out on everything we love for a year. People didn't go on vacation and go out to eat and all those things. So I think maybe they're going to be more focused on that in this coming year.
Yeah, maybe a newfound appreciation at large.
Yes, exactly.
As a result of this. Yeah. And one thing if I may be so bold as to admire this aspect of you, someone who took control in 2020, amidst all the chaos and uncertainties, someone who really took control and along with their family headed down and made something happen to make your best situation. I find that very impressive.
Yeah. And actually we put the offer on this house before COVID even existed. Well, I guess it existed. We just didn't know it existed yet. So it takes quite a while to close on a house in Mexico, especially when there's a pandemic. So it took, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, something like that to close.
Yeah. Is there a video on that?
Well, hopefully this problem is going away. So there won't be a video on that because hopefully it's not something that's going to be, people are going to need to know to repeat that process. But there were times, because it was taking so long, we could have pulled out at any time. We could have pulled out, gotten all our money back and walked away. And there were a lot of discussions this past summer, like, are we really going to move to another country during the middle of a pandemic? There was no vaccine on the horizon. There was talk of there'll be a vaccine someday, but it was a little scary, but it completely worked out. So yeah, it was.
So a little bit of risk taking, it sounds like.
Yeah. It's totally not my wife and I. We're very conservative in that way. We came down here for her birthday last February and put an offer on a house. We'd never been to La Paz before. So that was very out of character for us to just, go on vacation for a long weekend and leave having put an offer on a house. So yeah, it was that's
very different than ordering something off the menu that you can't pronounce. We're talking degrees of difference here.
Yeah. And so much not like us, but we were both like, yeah, let's do this. So we're like, well, let's do it. And it worked out.
That's great. Yep. It sounds like it has. It certainly seems like it has.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't have kids. So that maybe helps us. We're thinking if we lose all our money in this place, it's not our kids' inheritance. We're on the beach in Mexico. We're probably about, our house is probably 2 feet above the high tide line. Global warming is going to happen and this house is going to be underwater, but we're only going to last so long anyway. So there's kind of that thought of we don't have any responsibility. Let's do the things that we want to do right now.
Perhaps. In my experience, I've found that people use kids or not having kids as an excuse to support whatever decision they really want. They're very convenient in that way.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of people actually down here with kids. expats living in Mexico who have kids that are going to bilingual schools. So yeah, anything is possible.
Precisely. Yeah. What do you imagine some people, other than myself, admire about you?
I think it is that what I don't perceive as risk-taking, but what others perceive as risk-taking. Like when I graduated from college, I went to school in Wisconsin, lived all my life in Wisconsin, Milwaukee and Madison. And I was tired of cold. So as soon as I graduated, 3 days later, I started driving south and went to Florida, looking for a job. And then I took a job in Atlanta. That was the first place that offered me a job. So I stopped there and I said, okay, this is my home. I didn't know a single soul. So I think a lot of people, don't do that. They stayed home. They stayed with kind of like the tried and true. And they're like, wow, I can't believe you just moved across the country with no friends. And I'm like, I mean, quite frankly, I'm kind of like, wow, I can't believe you didn't. Like this is Wisconsin. It's cold here. But yeah, so I think it's the willingness to take risks and just do things. Kind of, what's the worst that can happen type of thing.
Precisely. Right. And if we look at a map briefly of your trajectory, we're talking Wisconsin, Atlanta, Portland, Mexico. Is that?
Yeah, those are there was a brief time I worked for Disney World during college. So there was a little bit of Orlando tossed in there, and we've traveled extensively around the world. But these are the living places. So yeah, I mean, Portland and Mexico combo seems like a good long-term solution for us.
Well, it also sounds like you're not someone who's afraid of reevaluating when the time comes and updating your list of intentionality.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that times are going to change. Our health is going to change. Sometimes you gotta do something different than you've been doing. And that's okay.
Or as you've pointed out, or you don't have to, right? Some people don't.
Yeah. Exactly. It's completely up to you. I mean, like down here, we're like, okay, well, should we just retire down here because our money goes so much further and healthcare is cheaper? Like we were like, wow, when my wife retires before Medicare age, what are we going to do about insurance? Because I'm on her insurance right now. Well, should we just move to Mexico because everything's cheaper? So there's so many opportunities, I guess, especially for Americans. There's so many different ways to do things. We're in a very privileged place, I guess. So we should kind of take advantage of it.
So were you saying privileges living in America or as Americans living wherever you want to live?
Well, I think just as Americans and as, middle income Americans, yeah, because there's a lot of flexibility. I'm sure there are probably many Americans who could not afford to do this. There are many Americans who could afford to do this into a mansion, but you compared to many of the people down here, there's so many more opportunities being in a privileged place in America. I mean, yeah.
Sure. I think that's really good awareness that you have of this privilege, but and you are taking advantage of these opportunities as opposed to the same person with the same privileges.
Yeah.
Just always wanting to maintain optionality, never taking a step.
Right.
But resting on the fact that, I could always do this if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But never truly exploring it. Does sound like that's not your style. That hasn't been your style.
No, it has not.
Yeah. So is there anything else in the name of intentionality that maybe we didn't cover that you'd like to share?
I'm not sure there is, but I think, the only thing I could think for those listening is to, I'm from Portland where Nike is founded. Yeah, I guess, is the idea of just do it. Just got to do it. Even if you're not ready, like my Spanish is atrocious, but 3 times a week I've been taking Spanish lessons and it's all working out. And it always seems to. And if it doesn't, it's easy to change directions.
That is so well said.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm not going to say anything else other than thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thanks to everyone who's listening.
This has been Intentionally Ever After, hosted by intentional lifestyle coach Joe Bukartek. If you would like to have your own intentional conversation with Joe on or off the air, visit intentionallyeverafter.com. Thanks for listening.